Hey, welcome to Tank Talk. I'm your host, Bob Tankard, and my special guest, and when I say special guest, she's special. Her name is Lindsay Webster, and Lindsay and I go way back to the Tisbury School, Lindsay,
West
when you were
Tisbury,
like in the fourth grade, fifth grade, sixth grade, and when I left in 2001, you left to go to Falmouth Academy.
I did.
Welcome, Lindsay.
Thank you. Thanks
Welcome
for
to the
having
island.
me.
Lindsay, it's always important that the audience know just a little bit about you for about a minute. So tell us a little bit about Lindsay, and then we'll get into the whole Lindsay.
Okay, so my name is Lindsay. I grew up here. I count myself among the islanders in that I was born here. I was born in OB. My Polaroid picture is in the hospital. But as you said, I went to Falmouth Academy, and then I went to a boarding school in New Hampshire. And after graduating from that boarding school, I ended up going to college, and I lived in the Midwest for a while, and I am back here on the island for the past like 6 years or so, and have, I think, decided to carve my life into this topography. So we'll see.
What was it like? What was it like growing up on the vineyard, living in West Tisbury, right, and going to the West Tisbury School? Did you go there from kindergarten to seventh grade?
I went to Montessori for kindergarten, and then I did West Tisbury School from first all the way to sixth. So it was good. I lived really close. The bus driver getting me home lost me twice. Or at one point, my mother got a bus driver fired at some point because he dropped me off on the side of the road. But it
was that when you were going
good.
to Tisbury School?
Yes, yep. And I'd gotten a haircut, and he didn't recognize me, and I don't know. But yeah, so I lived very deep in the woods, like Lower Lambert's Cove Road, back where Carly Simon lives. And so growing up in that area in particular was really fantastic. I always envied the kids that grew up in Eggertown and like Tisbury Central, who had their neighbors next door. And
your neighbors were far away, weren't they?
They were far away. I lived right in the middle of the woods.
And you could not, unless your mom took you to a friend's house, you basically came home and it was just you and your two sisters, right?
I had one friend through the woods who, it was like a 10-minute hike or so to get to my house. But otherwise, I mean, it's not like I lived in rural Iowa or anything, but yeah.
I always thought about kids like that. When I grew up on the vineyard, I was 15 when I moved here. But when I grew up, and even in Oak Bluffs back then, back in 61, 62, it was only like 4,500 people on the whole island in the wintertime. And when the summer people left, that might have lived on your street or something like that, when they all left, it was, Dennis Gonzalez lived, half a mile away. John Bunker lived next door down the street. But it wasn't really, had I been younger, it might have been a little different, but I was 15, 16. So, you had to, walk every place to try to find your. And I used to think of my friends like Alan Whiting and Prudy Whiting and Angie Waldron and them. I said, they lived up in West Tisbury. And I'm saying to myself, where the heck did they get their friends?
I know.
They must have had to walk a country mile or whatever. And I used to ask them about that. And they said, no, we found things to do. There was a little village and a little few more kids up around the West Tisbury Center. But when you got further out.
Yeah. Well, I remember my little clique of girlfriends. Truthfully, I wasn't much of a social kid who went and did play dates and stuff, but most often we would see each other at the orthodontist. That was where coincidentally we always had the same half an hour appointment to get our bands changed.
Right.
And so we'd run into each other at the orthodontist.
Tell us about your school. What made you go from the West Tisbury School to Falmouth Academy when the high school was a great school academically? Kids went to some of the best colleges and universities around.
Yep.
What made you go over to Falmouth Academy?
My mom was a boarding school child. Her family was one that had historically sent their kids to boarding school. So I think that it was on my track. My mom and my parents got divorced when I was younger, but my mom's feeling was, wanting to kind of broaden her children's horizons kind of thing. And I'm speaking only from my own family's perspective, but in my family, my mother wouldn't necessarily have chosen for her kids to grow up on the island, or to stay on the island as adults. I think that she saw it as a great place to raise kids, but wanted to do everything in her power to help us.
Did she think that the Falmouth Academy was academically better in achieving than the high school?
I think that she saw just more opportunity for myself. I I remember that one of her grievances was that, and I don't know if this is true because again, I didn't go to the high school, and I don't know very many people that go to the high school, but that they tend to track kids, like coming out of 8th grade, that the kids will kind of be tracked, and that getting off of that track would be a hard thing. So I was never a particularly great test kid. I didn't test particularly well. I remember going, when I was trying to get into Falmouth Academy, I had to take the SSATs, and I was in 6th grade at the West Isbury School, and the math that was going to be on the SSATs wasn't something that we were going over yet in our 6th grade math class. So Mr. Goodell, who is, shout out to Richard Goodell, like same with you, like
Dick.
placed in my heart. Yeah, I just, I feel
He's
like
a
you
good
guys,
man.
yeah,
Good man.
the Oprahs of Martha's Vineyard kind of thing. Like you guys are household names, and he ultimately, I credit my entire educational career to him because he tutored me on the side to get into Falmouth Academy.
Great.
So,
Dick was like
I know.
that. Dick was the man.
I know.
He was.
He still
I
is the
remember
man.
I worked with Dick when I entered back in 1972. The Tisbury School. Dick was there teaching, I think, 2nd or 3rd grade.
Yeah.
And the
He's an
kids
amazing
loved
guy.
him. And when he went off to the West Tisbury School, it was like a big vacuum had entered into the Tisbury School when Dick left. He was amazing. And when I came to the West Tisbury School, Dick was a legend at that time in there because he seemed to have been the nucleus, the catalyst that kept things together.
Yes.
In sometimes
he was exceptional.
Yeah, he was
I
exceptional.
remember his class, his 5th grade class, he was my 5th grade teacher, got me into my love for books more than anything. Like I was in his, I guess, more advanced classroom reading group, and we read Where the Red Fern Grows.
Right.
And I remember he cried during our group conversation about Where the Red Fern Grows. The saddest book ever, but it spurred my just love for books. And I stole a book from his classroom. It was the sequel to. And
I'm pretty sure he didn't mind.
Yeah. No, well, I remember I confessed to my mom that I stole the book, and she made me write him an apology letter. And I'm pretty sure he still has the apology letter. We've talked about it since, but he was a great teacher, is a great man.
When you left, you finished in Cape Cod Falmouth Academy, didn't you?
I did 7th and 8th grade there, and then I transferred I went to high school at Proctor in New Hampshire.
Proctor in New Hampshire.
Yeah.
Yep.
And when I went to Falmouth Academy, I was one of only 4 or 5 kids that were going.
Right.
And commuting every single day and having that flip book of tickets. And now I want to say there's 45 kids.
There's a lot of kids.
There's a lot
going
of kids
on.
that go.
Yeah. So you went to Proctor Academy, and
I did.
That's a very prestigious school.
It is. It's a great
And
school.
I know because my camp was in New Hampshire, in Bristol, New Hampshire, and we had a private school right there that I want to say young Lee Carroll had gone there. Was it Lee Carroll? Oh no, it was Jackson. One of the Jackson boys had gone there, and he played hockey there and everything else. But the New Hampshire public school systems are not that good.
Yeah, I truthfully
But
don't know
the
much
private school, they have loads of private schools up there that are very good.
Yeah, there's
Very
St.
good.
Paul, Holderness.
Right.
There's tons of really great schools.
And my nephews went to a couple of schools there.
Yeah,
So when you
Proctor-
left Proctor, where'd you go?
So when I graduated from Proctor, I went to Mount Holyoke. Was my my freshman year.
Amherst area.
Yeah, and I was kind of an anxious senior in high school in that I over-evaluated what was expected of me, and I think that a lot of high school seniors feel that way as everyone's preparing to go to college, and I wanted to try to choose kind of the most decisive, not necessarily the easiest, but the most planned out path so that I didn't have to worry too much about it, I guess. So in college, in high school, my thought had been to be a teacher and to do education, and so I went.
You look like you had been a good teacher.
Thanks. Well, I like kids, and I am so grateful to the teachers in my life. I feel in a lot of ways that my boarding school campus and my teachers there raised me in some capacity. Not to say that my parents didn't do a great job otherwise, but yeah. So I went to Mount Holyoke, and I felt the pressure to choose a great college. And I remember touring that campus with my mom and her elder sister, who was the smartest of their family, and I'm the eldest, and here we are in this beautiful campus on a fall day, and it's, you know, in this six sister consortium, and it's like this, you know, this prestigious thing. And so I chose that school truthfully from this kind of place of like wanting to fulfill my destiny. And I was not happy. I got really depressed my freshman year, and I kind of concluded at the end of that year feeling like, is it that this place is the place I am supposed to be, and that this is where I can fulfill my infinite potential? Or is it that, and I'm just not ready for it yet, that I have growing to do? Or is it that that I'm good, but that this really is not the place for me? And I think that what I didn't realize then is that it's kind of both and neither, and that, you know, I was 19 and still figuring it all out.
Let me ask you a question. If you had gone to the high school, instead of going to Falmouth Academy, which is, the high school's a lot more kids that you're, do you think your choice would have been different? You went to Proctor, but say you didn't go to Proctor, you finished and graduated to high school.
I don't know the answer to that. I think I partly want to say yes, but I almost want to say that I would have gone somewhere further away. After spending 4 years on the island, I think I would have maybe gone further away, maybe even out of the country. I don't know.
Now, did you finish at Mount Holyoke, or did you go to another school? I came back
here. So I after my freshman year, I decided ultimately to take a year off.
Okay.
I came home, which horrified my mother after growing up, her wanting us just to grow up and leave the island and, you know, like reach our potential somewhere else. Not good. That summer, I actually lived in John Keene's barn. Hillary and John Keene let me live in their barn.
John Keene, great people.
I know, and I love them. And it wasn't like I was sleeping on hay bales or anything.
Right.
But so that was my first real experience, like living on island separate from my family, because growing up and even commuting to Falmouth Academy, it always kind of, it recompounded the kind of seasonality of the island, that like summer months are when everybody's here, but then through the winter I'm just in the middle of the woods in West Tisbury kind of thing. And that like commuting lifestyle of Falmouth Academy and Proctor, and then ultimately coming back for my full year off after my freshman year of high school. So
after you went back to school?
I did. So after my year off, I worked at the Bunch of Grapes for about a year through that year. And
going back to the books, huh?
Yeah, and I'd worked at the Bunch of Grapes for like 8 years. Like I think I got my first job at the Bunch of Grapes when I was 14. So I came back from a year after Mount Holyoke to kind of explore what a full-time world might look like in publishing and stuff. And ultimately, I decided that I was going to go back to school. I didn't know what school I wanted to go to. My mother was very supportive, obviously, of my going back to school, and we toured. I want to say we toured like Simmons and Colby was my top choice. I really wanted to go to Colby, and I wonder.
Colby again is in New Hampshire, right?
Yes.
Colby, I want to say
it's somewhere up there. I want to say it's
in
like
Maine. My niece went to Colby.
Yeah, it's a great school. It's awesome, and to kind of like showcase the difference, Mount Holyoke was a beautiful fall day, like quintessential fall. Colby, we toured in the dead of winter. There was a foot of snow on the ground.
Yeah, it's cold up there.
It was cold, but I still loved it, and I wonder what my life would look like
Why
now.
didn't you go to Simmons? Simmons is in Boston.
Simmons is another all-girls school.
Went there.
It's an all-women's college, right?
College.
Yeah. So I didn't want to necessarily like go back to that, and also I'm an island kid. I'm a small town kind of lady. I like recognizing the people in my vicinity. So ultimately, I went to Hobart William Smith, which is in Western New York, in like Finger Lakes, Geneva. And I'd never driven off island when I went for my first. I didn't tour the campus. I literally just applied and got in because I hadn't gotten into Colby, which was really upsetting to me. And so I drove off island for the first time to go to Hobart William Smith on the highway for the first time. My dad in that seat, going 95 and a 65, got pulled over. So I got my first ever ticket of like $200, and the guy was not understanding of the fact that I grew up on an island where like the cop cars don't look like the cop cars off island, and I thought I was being followed by an ambulance, and getting into the left lane didn't do anything, and he basically chased me for like 5 miles. But thanks, Dad. So yeah.
I know Dad paid the ticket.
He didn't actually. I think it was the lesson that I needed to learn.
Oh, yeah, okay. I know those lessons.
Yeah.
Now you finished college. You know, and now the real dilemma takes place.
Yeah.
What does Lindsay do with her life now? Where does after graduating from college take you?
So Hobart William Smith is a very service-focused college. So a lot of people.
I can see you in that too.
Yeah,
Service focus.
and I did, and I graduated, and I had applied to AmeriCorps,
Okay.
Specifically City Year, which is kind of a branch of AmeriCorps, like Teach for America,
Right.
where you're a mentor in a very rural school that has like really high truancy rates, and basically you're a tutor and mentor for the kids. They're like building up after school programs and things. So I applied for City Year, and I checked that box that said like where in the country would you like to go? And I said wherever they would want me, hoping that maybe California was on the list, but I ended up going to Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio.
Columbus, Ohio. So I spent about 2.5 years after college in Columbus, Ohio. The first 6 months or so working for AmeriCorps, which was an awesome experience. And then staying out there, I was in a relationship, and I don't know, I was trying to like make a life in a way that I thought would satisfy all the people in my life who saw me growing up on the island. And I
Were you
didn't like
looking
it.
to please people?
Yes, I've always been looking to please people. But I think that is why I'm now 30, and I put a lot of pressure on myself as to should I still be here, kind of thing, or should I think I hear.
Well, what brought you back? A lot of kids, and I myself encourage kids that grew up on the island to get a chance to get away, to see what's on the other side of the bridge, and to experience the various things of life. And it is beautiful when they can come back to the vineyard and bring something back with them. And hopefully when they come back, they bring a certain perspective that is positive and that can continue to grow the vineyard in a positive way.
Absolutely.
So I have no problem with that. Some people think that kids that are on the vineyard are so narrow-minded and so closed-minded, but today's children aren't, because of the internet and all the other things and the population in the summertime, the various people they meet. It's not as closed as it used to be when I was a kid.
I totally agree.
It's totally open.
Yep.
And plus, our kids at our high school and our junior high schools, they travel.
Yep.
When I was the principal, we traveled to England. Our kids travel to England in 8th grade. They go to Washington D.C. and our high school kids go all over the world.
Yeah,
so it's not
true.
like they're a little person in a big. No, they've done several things.
Right.
So you come back to the vineyard. Now you're out there in Columbus. You look at Columbus and say, "No, this is not working right now. I need to go back." And you come home. What did you come home with the idea to do?
So I think that growing up, I always ultimately wanted to come back. Like, I think that of my mother's children, I'm the one that was destined to come back. I think that my personality is one that wants to be here. I mean, from childhood, I've never been a particularly like career-oriented person, and I like shame myself a little bit for saying that, because I am a strong woman. But I am.
I can remember that as when you were in grade school, in the
Thank you.
4th, 5th, 6th grade. You were a leader.
Thank you. I am.
You were a leader.
Thank you. I thank you for saying that and for noticing. And I'm working on that still. Like, I very much am a 30-year-old who sees the growth that I still have yet to do. But I wanted to be a mom and a wife, and a teacher, or some.
Still time.
Yeah, totally, for sure. But just to say that, it does make me think about deciding to live on an island. Now here I am, 30. Should I maybe become more comfortable with the idea of that not necessarily happening? And like, maybe that is the next step. People say that it will happen when you're not looking for it, kind of thing.
It sure does.
And so I think that that's where I am. For the next 12 months of my life, I'm going to dedicate myself to the thought pattern of like, if it doesn't happen, it's okay. If I end up going to a sperm bank when I'm 42, that's all right. That ultimately, like, our lives, that if I were to find that tomorrow, I know that I am not in a place where I could fulfill that life yet.
I believe that it's always somebody out there for everybody. Right. And at the time, I think sometimes we rush that situation, and then we wind up 5 or 6 years later saying, I think I made the wrong mistake. Totally. But I believe that there's the right Mr. Right out there for you.
Thank you.
And I think sometimes the good Lord teaches us patience and saying, wait, I got the person out there. But I think you being your personality, and why I asked you to come on, Lindsay, is, you send out information over the internet about the why.
I do.
And I watched your presentation before, and I said, I wonder where she did that. And then I watched your second and third, and I said, where did she get that from? How did she do that? I actually thought you either came to the station here or some very professional person coached you into the presentations. And when you told me you did that, I said, I said, Lindsay needs to be on television. You either need to be on television, either as an analyst or for a television, talk show or the news caption or something, because your presence sort of captivates a person. Okay.
Thank you. That's really
And I
nice.
said to myself, I wonder if she'd do a show with me and tell me why did she never go into that area. And I'm going to ask you right now.
I know,
Why
I'm gonna
didn't
tell you.
Did you notice that about yourself? And was it ever a desire to move in that direction?
I don't want to say that had I not been an incredibly overweight child / young adult / adult, that maybe my life would have ended up differently. I don't want to exist in this world that had I been different, maybe my life would be different. I just can't, I think I've spent the last 25 years of my life thinking that kind of thought pattern about why am I on the island? Should I be somewhere else? But I was really heavy growing up. I kind of got off the charts of what's normal when I was 8 or so years old. And then going through high school and really college is where it got bad. I gained probably 150 pounds in college. And then ultimately, after graduating and moving out to Ohio, I gained another 150 pounds or so, to the point where I was about 389 was my highest. When I was living in Ohio, and I was in a really unhealthy and unhappy relationship out there with somebody. And I think you have to think of the perspective of somebody that wanted to be a mother and wife their entire life, and then ultimately getting all the way out to Ohio and finding somebody who likes me and loves me a lot, and then the two of us continuing to gain weight through our relationship, and then there I was, 25 in Ohio. Where was my life going to go, I guess? And I hadn't seen my family in a while. So my mom came out to visit, and she hadn't seen me in about 6 months at that point. And she did not recognize me. She could not get her arms around me. She tells me things about having seen me seeing me then that it's kind of an out of body experience for me to remember it, because nobody ever saw me. When I graduated from college, for the next 3 years, I wasn't here.
Yeah, so none of your friends saw you.
Yeah, nobody saw me. And I have one single picture, which isn't PG. I'm smoking a hookah with my mom sitting next to me, and I'll show it to you. But where I look really large. So ultimately, it was a life-changing decision to come home, really, because I was not going to fulfill my destiny out there. So I changed my lifestyle. I came home. I started working part-time at the YMCA. My mom loved Pilates. So she was a very gung-ho, the YMCA will help you kind of thing. Ray Whitaker had trained her and scared her half to death, but she is somebody who battled weight her whole life as well. So I ultimately came back to the island and lost a bunch of weight with the help of the Y. Just surrounding myself with. Well,
I tell you what, you don't look like that. You ever had attained that 380 pound, whatever pounds it was, you don't look like you had ever was like that. You know what I mean?
Thanks. But yeah, I mean, I that is a very large piece of my history, and I hold it in. It has been something that I kind of feel shame about, or knowing that it's something that had it been different growing up, could I be somewhere else? But I know that I am here because of everything that's behind me. And
I got 2 questions.
Yeah.
We got about maybe 3 minutes.
Okay.
First question is, what do you offer young people that are on the island now? What suggestions would you give them?
I would say read books and find things that you are passionate about that give you that kind of like fire in your heart. And even if it's something as simple as like going for a walk and sitting at the beach, but just identify what are those things that fill your heart up. And then whether you're doing them off island or on island for the rest of your life, just hold on to those things.
And the second question is, what's in the future for Lindsay?
I don't know.
What would Lindsay want to do in the future down the road?
I have visions of doing fun things. I think I want to continue working at the Y, obviously, and stretch my fingers into that world. But I also have this like hidden dream of the island doing a production of Frozen, and I star as Elsa and like get all the kids to sit in post-pandemic times.
That's
because
beautiful.
like, are you ready for this?
Okay.
Let it go, can't hold it back anymore.
That's
you know, like
great.
I love that.
That's
I love
great.
that stuff. Thank
you know one thing, you were always an entertainer. I can remember that part of you when you were young in
Well,
grade
that
school.
probably wasn't great, but I just I
but
love doing that and surprising a kid with that. You know, with some just.
You also told me when we were talking a few days ago, a week ago, that you'd like to read books.
Yeah,
Or
I tell that to very few people in my life. There's a couple first dates that I've had a little bit too much to drink and told that on. But yes, I want to read audiobooks.
Yeah.
Like I have this vision of just living out this like simple life with a cup of tea where you wake up naturally at 6:30 in the morning and record for a while, you know, and everything from like a book that, you know, like Barack Obama's book that obviously he's going to narrate that book, but there were so many books in my childhood that answered questions for me that I didn't feel that I could go to an adult about, and I would love to be the voice on the other end of an audiobook to help a kid. So
I'm going to tell you one thing. Follow your dreams.
thanks.
Don't let it go. Don't bury it under the stone or in the sand. Follow it.
Thank
Reach
you.
for it.
I will.
Continue.
I'm going to.
You're a young lady, and you got a lot of things to do, and you're going to affect a lot of people's lives.
Thanks.
Hey, listen, Lindsay, I want to thank you
Thanks for having
coming
me.
on to Tank Talk. I want to thank you for tuning into Tank Talk. And until next time, this is your host, Bob Tankard, saying good evening.